group of us got together and tried to figure out how we could do something to change this approach. I mean, it was literally a situation in which nothing significant was going to happen. And what we learned was that various other states in the country, approximately 18 states, had adopted a system of creating a criminal justice commission or a sentencing commission composed of prosecutors, defense attorneys, representatives of victims' rights groups, officials in the penal justice system, and lay people to get together and sort of systematically conduct an evidence-based study of sentencing policies and make recommendations to legislatures. And this idea had several virtues. One is that it just created a group that was working on the problem. Number two, it gave the politicians cover. In other words, they didn't have to stand up in the well of the Senate or the House and say, what I want to do is decriminalize marijuana. Instead, you could rely upon the work of a criminal justice commission and say, this has been proposed by this commission, we think it's a good idea, let's adopt it. So in 2008, the legislature passed a statute creating what is called, in Colorado, is called the Colorado Criminal and Juvenile Justice Commission. Its charter is to look at the entire criminal justice system, not just sentencing laws, the entire criminal justice system, and to make recommendations to the legislature. The good news about this group is that it is working. It has made some far-reaching recommendations on changing parole, some of which have been adopted. It is working on recommendations regarding rehabilitation and other issues. The bad news is that it's very slow. And the reason it's very slow, of course, is that what's going on is that the fight over what policy ought to be is taking place in the commission. And there are honest disagreements among prosecutors, defense counsel, and others about what to do. The entire value of the commission is that it comes out with a unified suggestion. Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals, prosecutors and defense attorneys. If they can all come out with a uniform recommendation on a particular subject, it has a high likelihood of being adopted. So this commission is at work in Colorado. It has, as I say, it's been going since 2008. One of the reasons it got created was that when I was working on this project, I called Bill Ritter, who was then the district attorney in Denver, and I asked him if he would come to lunch with me because I wanted to talk to him about some thoughts I had about sentencing reform in Colorado. He came to the lunch and he agreed with what I was doing. And I said, do you want to be a member of the commission? He said, no, I don't want to be a member. I mean, a member of my group. He said, no, I don't want to. He said, but keep me informed. So I put him on the email list. And by the time this statute passed, he really knew everything we had been doing. He was privy to what we were doing, and he was very instrumental. In fact, the legislation never would have passed without Bill Ritter, because Bill Ritter got the prosecutors to go along with it. There was a substantial group of prosecutors who would not have gone along with it without Ritter's twisting their arm and urging them to do it. You know, many people in the criminal justice community, particularly defense attorneys, are chagrined at the slow rate of progress, and I understand that. I mean, it is slow, but it's real. The progress that's being made by this commission is real, and they are looking at some of the issues I just mentioned. For example, women. If you take women as a category, there is no separate sentencing category for women. If you have discretionary sentencing, a judge can use that discretion, but otherwise there isn't. Well, women, the recidivism rate among women is a tiny fraction of the recidivism rate among men. In all fairness, we shouldn't incarcerate women as long. We should let them out earlier. They're much less of a risk to society than the men are as a group. Obviously, in my judgment, we need to change our approach to drugs. We need to have much more treatment is actually less expensive than confinement. It seems to me, and we're moving slowly in that direction. But of course, I mean, it's a big issue, and how far you go is a big issue. If you do marijuana, what else do you do? And if you don't do anything else, is that the way to go? There are issues about, we have age, we have some offenders in the prison. This is, it's not a huge deal, but we have prisoners in there who are in their 70s and 80s, who are simply costing us a lot of money, and they're not going to do anything to anybody. I mean, they're not going to do anything to anybody. And we ought to at least put our minds to how to deal with them. Yes, please.
About mandatory parole.
Yes.
Recidivism, and technical violations of parole.
Yeah. One of the recommendations made by the Criminal Justice Commission that was adopted by the legislature in 2010 was to change the policy with regard to technical violations. Let me explain this for those of you who may not understand. Approximately between 30 and 40% of the population of our penal institutions are parole violators. That is, people who have been let out and then put back in because they violated parole. Most often, the parole violations are what are called technical violations. That is, someone was committed of armed robbery, they got out, and they smoked pot, or they did not report to the parole officer, or whatever. And these technical violations then land them back in prison for the full remaining length of their sentence. This is just a policy that has been costing the state of Colorado an enormous amount of money, and it really isn't. It doesn't do that much good. So the discretion now to treat technical violators as people who can remain out and on parole it hasn't reduced the population, but the growth of the prison population is now slowed to something like 2%, and it was growing very, very quickly. And so the change in parole policy is affecting the population of the criminal justice system. By the way, I should mention, and this is no great credit to us, per capita, we incarcerate, we are the fourth largest, or that's, largest is the wrong word, state in the nation. That is, we are fourth in the list of people, of per capita people in prison. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know how we got ourselves into this position, and we have a long way to go to get ourselves out. We have two things that are going for us right now that are very important. One of them is that the crime rate is down. The other one is we're in a fiscal crisis, and we need the money.